And we are live. Hello, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another rendition for the second night in the row of Grapple Gurus, your BC WrestlePod PPV and PLE review show here on the BC WrestlePod YouTube, Twitch, Network, Syndicate, Podcasting Conglomeration. I am
Plus.
one of plus. Yes, I am one of your hosts, Mikey, and joining me this evening is my homie, friend, our GCW correspondent, Mr. A to Z himself. Andrew is in the house. How you doing tonight, my friend?
Good. I feel like we've gotten a lot of GCW in the last few days. It's been pretty awesome.
We have spent a lot of time together in the last week. I'm not even gonna lie. And we're going to continue that trend next Sunday, apparently. Anyways, but tonight we are here to review another GCW show. This is the second week in a row of GCW content, which makes me super happy. And it is going to be the last of 2024, but that is okay because we already have one for January and one for February. We're going to talk about the February one later in the show. But we are here to cover GCW presents Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 12 that took place in Jersey City, New Jersey. This was the day after Full Gear. Jersey had a lot of wrestling from both major and independent companies all over the weekend. There was also some great stuff. It was a good time to be a wrestling fan. And myself, Andrew, and the professor were lucky enough to watch this together on Sunday. And me and Andrew are here to cover it. So before we get into anything, a little bit of housekeeping. You already know the drill. We are anywhere and everywhere all over the interwebs at BC WrestlePod. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We have Patreon. You can download the Next Level app and find all our stuff there. We have merch. We are doing a lot of stuff. And I am super excited because we are just 3 weeks away from our end of the year specials, which makes me super excited. We are basically covering all the major things. We also have a watch along leading into the Christmas season. Well, technically, we have 3. There's an MLW one next week. We have Saturday Night Main Event for WWE the following week. And then we end off in a bang, I hope, with ROH's final battle. And then we have World's End at the end of the month. So we got 4 pay-per-views. It's about to get crazy. And we have a TNA one too. It's crazy. It's like, it's December. We're about to end it. But I'm super excited because the end of the year shows are my favorite things. And here's hoping I can get everybody on for the big one. Mark your calendar for Sunday, December 15th is when we are going to have our big end of the year podcast where we're going to talk about the best and the worst. But enough with all that. Now that the announcements are out of the way, let us begin because we are going to be covering Bloodsport 12, and I'm going to tag in our GCW correspondent, Andrew, to kind of lead us through a very spectacular night. I'm not going to lie. So, Andrew, why don't you take the reins? What we got?
Yeah, it was fun coming back for another night of Bloodsport. We've been lucky enough so far in the short time that we've been covering GCW to get 2 Bloodsports, and we've actually done live watch-alongs and reviews for the Bloodsports. For those not familiar with Bloodsport, it is presented by Josh Barnett. It's very different rules from the regular GCW rules or lack thereof. Much more combat sports style. No ropes, no interference, no weapons. Wins only by knockout, submission, referee stoppage, count out, or disqualification. I think we had every night went to a finish, or every fight went to a finish, which was pretty exciting. And we got some fun announcements, a couple big announcements that we got, and we had some big surprises that came up throughout the show too. So without any further ado, let's get into it. We started off with a pretty all right match. For me, this was the lower match. I think for me, my biggest issue was that this match didn't have a lot of hype going into it, at least for me and for, I think, mainstream, audience members. And it was short. It felt really short. but it was still good. I thought, for it was definitely in the best place that it could be. But we had Lou Nixon taking on Calvin Tankman. Um, both these guys came out looking like they were ready to go and everything, and I think they did well for themselves. But Mikey, what did you feel about this first match?
Well, I think I agree with you in the sense that I think this was probably the best place to have this as the opener because everything after this match was just crazy, and that's not an understatement. Everything was nuttier afterwards. And I kind of agree. I kind of wish maybe we got like 2 or 3 more minutes of this because it did feel relatively short. I feel like 5 minutes went by and I was just like, okay, well, I mean, that's over. I don't inherently on paper, it wasn't bad, but it definitely wasn't. And I could say this, this was definitely the weaker match of the whole entire night, but not like, oh my gosh, this is a 3 or 4. They don't know what they're doing. Just like, I
Yeah.
give this like a 6.5, maybe a gracious 7, if you will. Like, I think it was placed in the perfect spot because once we got this match out of the way, everything else just kept escalating up to what we got later in the evening. But this is my second introduction to Lou Nixon. I saw him previously at Fight Club when he was a part of that multi-man match with Mr. Danger flying off the U-Haul, which was fantastic to watch. And, he's been at some of the other GCW shows in the last month or so. And he will also be at this one in the next couple ones in December, too, if I remember correctly as well. So I think he's great. We always need good representation of British wrestling and anywhere because I feel like it's a dying breed. But yeah, I think this was an okay match. I didn't think it was inherently bad, but yeah, it was a good opener is the best way I could put it.
Absolutely. Well, Lou Nixon did come out victorious. He picked up a TKO victory with a vicious elbow and followed up with some foot stomps to take out the much bigger Calvin Tankman. So good on him for picking up that victory. We moved on pretty quickly from this match to our second match, which was GCW regular, especially in Bloodsport. Matt Mikowski took on a newcomer in an Olympic wrestler in David. We all butchered your last name,
We call you Mods.
Shively. This dude, I called him this when we saw the event, was real life Zangief. Insane. When I went back and I looked at the screenshot of him getting his hands raised, I mean, the wingspan of this dude is absolutely insane. We've gotten to see Matt Mikowski a few times in GCW, who's at the last Bloodsport that we watched together. This was the first time we were seeing David in GCW and in Bloodsport. How did you feel about him coming into this basically as a rookie, both in Bloodsport as like that kind of arena, but in professional wrestling itself? What did you feel like you saw from him in this?
Well, first and foremost, anytime we get Matt Mikowski in GCW, I'm always, especially in Bloodsport, I'm going to be a fan. I think I said it at the last Bloodsport. He won me over, and it was my first real introduction to him, so I think he's fantastic. But man, Mods is such a whole different beast, like physically and just in a whole different ball game. Again, I rewatched this to make sure to see. I was like, let me see if I could catch anything. You're right. This dude's wingspan is ridiculous. I'm just like, he is just a mountain of a man. Like, I think this was relatively great, and I think Matt did a really good job of trying to counter just the sheer monstrosity that Mons was in this whole entire thing. But yeah, as soon as I saw the size difference, I was like, "There's no way David's losing this one." I want to see more of him in Bloodsport, and if he's transitioning into a professional wrestling career, like, I would not be against him getting a little more training, coming to GCW shows more a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I want to see him and Galeno del Sol go up against each other, like two beefy boys just fighting it out. Let's go. I thought this was an excellent match, and as my first introduction to David Mods over here, I want to see more of him. So that I think that was the best part for me of this match is I want to see more from David afterwards.
Yeah, I agree. I think having him come in and make appearances at GCW is smart. Not only does it's a good bridge for him if that's the route he wants to go is further into professional wrestling, but I think also the nice thing is GCW is Bloodsport is spread out enough that it gives him time to continue training in this specifically between each event, so there's a good chance that we can see real growth from him. But he picked up the victory with a rare power bomb in Bloodsport, knocking Matt Mikowski out cold. And I thought he had an impressive victory.
Matt bounced off that mat. I was like, "Oh, that's some real power." Oh no!
And it was a beautiful reversal too. He caught a kick and then just hoisted him up and just powerbombed him. So, good on him. A good victory, good first appearance, and I think he definitely has some features that could be very marketable to Bloodsport. So we moved on from this to another surprising appearance in Bloodsport, and it's becoming less surprising to see WWE superstars in Bloodsport. It seems like it's been a gateway, and we talked a bit about this in the show. We saw WWE/NXT Carmen Petrovic taking on Sumi Sakai. I believe they said 27-year veteran. And so, someone who's been around a lot, definitely has those veteran chops. And Carmen Petrovic, who is pretty new in general to professional wrestling, but especially to GCW. I thought this was a fun match, and it felt like it was a really good display for both people. Veteran really helping the quote unquote rookie kind of coming in, but also they seem to work really well together. Mikey, I know you're someone who's seen a lot of Carmen being the WWE and NXT. Well, I mean, really, you just watch everything, so you know everybody. What did you think of Carmen coming into Bloodsport? Did she live up to your hopes for having her in here? And how do you think she did against Sumi Sakai? And what do you feel about this match?
So I have to give credit to Sumi Sakai because I'm a little bit more familiar with her. Of course, I did my research on some of these folks before we began watching. And yeah, Sumi is a veteran in the business, so I love having her here. To answer your question, I think Carmen did live up to my expectation because again, we have and especially in NXT, we have a lot of women who are making that transition from combat sports, regardless of background, whether it be martial arts, MMA, judo, jiu-jitsu, like all these different styles of combat sports, and then translating and transitioning that into the professional wrestling that we see. I think Carmen did really well here. I feel like she got to showcase more of her actual martial arts background here than she does in NXT. That oof, that kick to pick up the win at the very end was so beautiful to watch. I'm just like, oh, it was so good. And yeah, I said it during the watch along too. I hope WWE and NXT were watching this because I want to see this version of Carmen more in NXT than what we've been getting. Because right now, I don't like the direction that we're having her in right now. And anybody who has seen the NXT reviews knows I'm not a big fan of this will they, won't they lovers storyline between her and Ashanti the Adonis is so stupid and I hate it. I'm like, give me this. Give me Carmen Petrovic being the NXT version of Elektra or Black Widow or, Shredder, if you will, from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, let her just kick ass. And that's all she needs to be. I thought she did really great. I really enjoyed this match.
And I feel like that's a running theme that we tend to see outside. I mean, especially in Bloodsport, we talked about a little bit of outside of NXT. We get to see these performers dabble in a little different bit of character, and they get to have more of an edge. It's almost like going away from the family friendly entertainment into the more underground entertainment. And, Carmen definitely seemed to benefit from that. I think Sumi Sakai helped. She had a really good dance partner to go out there with. Um, Obviously, Carmen doesn't have the high flying um, chops that someone like Mike Bailey does, but there were definitely some features that I saw in her work in the ring that was very reminiscent of some of the things that Mike Bailey does with his striking and mixing that with professional wrestling. But Carmen did well in her blood sport debut, picking up the victory, like you said, with a beautiful tornado kick to a downed Sumi Sakai, and it was absolutely brutal. And good credit to them. They were good sports about it afterwards. And I would love to see more of Carmen here in Bloodsport. I think GCW and Bloodsport are doing a really good job of recruiting some of the best people to come in and like represent in this specific style of professional wrestling.
Right. And we talked about it too because we've seen a couple of the NXT girls come on over here and we talked about it. I said it will come up a little bit later when we talk about more of our NXT representation on the men's side. But if we're going to continue to bring in NXT girls, I would love to see Lola Vice come in because
Yes.
I think Lola would fit in so perfectly here and she would bring, and you even said it during our watch along too. I think Lola has been the best translation from MMA to professional wrestling, where Lola is actually using her MMA background as a wrestling base. And I think Lola would absolutely be amazing here.
Yeah. She kind of gives me like a more colorful Ken Shamrock vibe. But moving on from this match, we go to two GCW regulars. In fact, they're so regular, they are the GCW Tag Team Champions and hold the most title defenses for that title. And I guess they just got so tired of wrestling other tag teams that they decided why not beat the crap out of each other. And that's Kevin Koo and Dominic Carini, living up to the Violence is Forever nickname or tag team name. Um, I thought this was a lot of fun. I've seen a lot of these two over the last few months of covering GCW, so I kind of knew what to expect from them. I know you've seen them, a decent amount too. Um, I think we were all kind of unsure about which way this could go because it could kind of gone either way. Um, but I thought it was really entertaining. I felt like this was a really good, like, this kind of felt like we were stepping into the in combat sports and MMA, there's often like an undercard and a main card, and it felt like this was the first match of the main card for me. We had two veterans and two people who were highly skilled um, combatants going against each other. Um, what were your thoughts on getting to see two tag team partners wrestle each other and really just beat the crap out of each other?
I think this was a lot of fun for the sense that because my introduction to Violence is Forever was for Kevin and Dominic together. So it
Hmm.
was really nice to see them work separately against each other in kind of this. There's some stakes because you want to be the winner, nobody wants
Hmm.
to be the loser, but it was really fun. I think for me too, as I've continued to watch GCW, I always look for people who I want to support. Kevin Koo's just very hilarious, and it showed when his entrance for this match. Dominic is also great too. Dominic, his appearance doesn't say it, but he has a lot of power behind him, and I think that's what impressed me about this whole entire match is just how hard Guarini strikes are.
Hmm.
And every time he hit Kevin, like you knew they were hard chops and hard slaps because you saw the spatter of
Hmm.
sweat like dissipate upon contact. But it was also really cool because this was my real first chance to see, okay, Kevin, yeah, Violence is Forever is the thing because it wasn't just Dominic. Kevin also got some really big strikes in there too. This is fantastic, and I'm there's no argument as to why they're GCW Tag Team Champions. Like they literally decimate their opponents, And I thought this was fantastic. I would love to see these two go at it again in a future Bloodsport, but this was great. And I agree with you in the sense that I think from this match onward was the starting point of just the overarching energy that carried through the rest of the show. The first couple of matches were great, and they gave us a little taste of, the new and up and comers, if you will. Now we're getting into the people who are about to rip each other to shreds, and we might see some bleeding later, which we did in one of these matches, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But this was a good turning point for Bloodsport because this energy carried for the rest of the matches.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like it was also a nice feature to have because if you're a tag team, like the tag team we know is going to be facing against Valances for the tag team titles, and you see this match and you're like, oh, if they do that to each other, what are they going to do to us? So it's kind of one of those like making a statement even beyond Bloodsport. But Dominic Garrini picked up the victory here with a very impressive, rarely seen twister, which is one of my favorite submissions, which was awesome to see him hook in and get that victory. So credit to Dominic Garrini and Kevin Koo, too. I thought this was a really fun match. Set us up for our next match of the night, which was Charlie Dempsey versus a replacement for Akira because Akira almost got gutted at an MLW show.
I saw that main event because it's free on YouTube. Slaughterhouse happened over the weekend. I saw that Weapons of Mass Destruction match that Akira was involved with against Mads Kruger. It's going to take, let's just say, without getting demonetized, so to speak, let's just say that Akira is going to need more than a couple of staples and stitches because that was like a second grade like cut that was across his abdomen. I was like, oh my gosh, that is like somebody stabbed him. It was nuts.
Oh yeah, and it's going to take a good amount of time to heal up. But Charlie Dempsey and the rest of us did not have to wait for long as we found out that Hot Sauce Tracy Williams would be replacing Akira. And nothing against Akira because I think this would have been a really fun match too, but I was not let down at all by seeing Tracy Williams.
No, absolutely not. Like, I agree with you 110%. I'm just going to go out and flat out say it. Hot Sauce put in the work, didn't make it easy for Charlie. I know this is really early in our review to say this, but even when I watched it again earlier today, I have to say this is probably my favorite match of the whole entire Bloodsport 12. That's saying something because the matches we got after this too were just as great. Holy crap, though. So first and foremost, Hot Sauce Tracy Williams, veteran of the industry, Ring of Honor staple in the era before the Tony Khan era, as I like to call it. Been in this business for 20 plus years at this point. Doesn't look a day over like 32. Like, this man is in good shape. He wrestles like he is still in his prime. But when I tell you, I think this is the most impressed I have been with Charlie Dempsey. And again, this goes back to what I said that kind of applies a little bit here that I said about Carmen, is that the character work that Charlie is presented with in NXT is not necessarily my favorite. He's getting a little bit better, and they've kind of pivoted their direction a little bit. But this match showed me, I'm like, oh, I forgot. There's a reason why you are William Regal's kid, because this match with Charlie in it gave me shades of prime William Regal and that catch style of wrestling. And I hold this opinion to this day. I think William Regal is probably one of the best British catch wrestlers that we have seen in the 20th century and then the 21st century. And I will die on that hill. And during this match too, I was like, you got to hit harder, Tracy. I'm like, his dad is William Regal. It's like, my dad hits harder than you. And we know it. Like, this is the best I have seen Charlie Dempsey, period. And I want to see this Charlie more in Bloodsport, and I want to see it translate to NXT as well. But Holy crap, Charlie was amazing in this match. Hot Sauce did a great job too. And again, this was my favorite match of the whole entire card, which is saying something because I thoroughly enjoyed everything we got after this too.
Mhm.
There's just something so magical about this match. And actually, I feel like this was the longest match on the card too, or at least it felt like that. This was given time, which I appreciated.
Yeah, and it felt like it really played to their strengths. It also felt like it had the development of Charlie Dempsey. We got to see him start off a little more slow paced, like he often does, but then pick it up as he realized that Hot Sauce was not somebody to take lightly. And I 100% agree. I think the version of Charlie Dempsey that we have gotten outside of NXT is so much more engaging than the version that we get in NXT, whether it's in GCW or TNA. And I think we need to start seeing that. I feel like, without talking too much about other promotions, what we get in NXT is the Saturday morning cartoon version. And what we get outside of it is like the Friday night fights version. And that's kind of what I want to see more of it, especially if we're going to have any indications of him being his father's son. And I think, as we see with another stablemate of his and Miles Bourne later on, I think that's something that could benefit that entire stable because it plays to what they're already trying to do with them, but in a much more engaging way. But Charlie Dempsey picks up the victory over Tracy Williams with a submission, and it was awesome. It was super entertaining, and the finish was it was scrappy. I mean, they went tooth and nail to this, and Charlie Dempsey came out on top. So credit to him, and I hope we get to see more of him back here in Bloodsport, which I feel like we will. This being his second appearance now in Bloodsport, so kudos to Charlie Dempsey, and hopefully a quick recovery for Akira because that was pretty gnarly, and I think we hope for those moments to not happen as much as possible in any professional wrestling. But moving on from that, we got another former WWE/NXT wrestler, a current AEW, and sometimes
Sorry, Will. Charlie. Will, I will tell you, I actually think if you watch this match,
yes.
you would actually kind of like Charlie Dempsey a little bit more. And he shaved his mustache.
I was going to say also he shaved off the mustache. Yeah.
So he's not looking like Willy Wonka over here anymore. But we could persuade you a little bit later.
Over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we moved on to Marina Shafir versus, and nothing you say will convince me.
We tried.
Yeah, and we'll keep trying.
Yes.
But we got Marina Shafir versus TNA's one half of the TNA Knockout World Tag Team Champion Jody Threat. I think this match and the match that we got after this were probably
also
up there in my top matches, and probably the Alexander Bailey match, but we'll get to all of those as we do. This match was, I felt like we had the trained professional fighter versus just like the scrappy brawler.
Which I love.
Yeah. And Jody Threat, I thought, for someone who doesn't really have much of a combat sports background, though she does train in professional wrestling with Josh Alexander, who has obviously a very extensive wrestling background. This match was super good. This was so good. This was Marina Shafir shining in the style of professional wrestling that she absolutely shines in. And I think she has gotten phenomenally better in professional wrestling, hands down, over the last few years. And Jody Threat, who is relatively new as well into professional wrestling, considering, she's not old, but she's not in her early 20s like a lot of the people that have similar experience. These two threw down, and we also got a surprise appearance in this as Marina Shafir was walked down to the ring by the leader of her stable in John Moxley, who is also no stranger to Bloodsport. I think I know that you enjoyed this match, Mikey, but what were some of your highlights from this match?
What gave it away? I'm just kidding. So first I want to talk about Moxley, which is really weird, but I think for me, this is a good example of how and it's nothing against Marina Shafir. In the world of professional wrestling, we know that Mox is a big deal. But I feel like him walking Marina and being out there for Marina didn't take away from her. And I think it had actually enhanced it because he didn't do anything. He didn't get involved. He wasn't like in the spotlight. He was just like, he was like a dad walking his fighter daughter to the ring and staying there to watch her and cheering her on from the sidelines. I will say before I get to Marina, Jody Threat continues to impress me every time we see her both in TNA and outside of TNA, like in things like Bloodsport. Last Bloodsport, she went up against Masha at the last Bloodsport, right? Yeah. So that match was great. I think this one was a lot better, and her dance partner and Marina Shafir was fantastic. But man, when I tell you Marina Shafir is also a good example of translating from MMA to professional wrestling and using that as a basis for her character and her moveset. Marina Shafir is just such a badass, and that's the thing I love. And honestly, this is the Marina Shafir that I fell in love with in ROH, and she continues to impress me. You know, she has a good pedigree with her own skills, also being trained probably by the likes of Moxley, her husband, Roderick Strong, who is technically sound in the ring too. Like, I'm going to be honest, I would not be surprised in the next year or two. I could see this woman holding some sort of championship. Like, I think it's time to start putting Marina Shafir against some fun opponents too. She did phenomenal in this match. She was awesome. I never get tired of the Mother's Milk as her finisher. Like, it's just so devastating and making people pass out. I'm just like, shh, go to sleep as he choke you out. Like, she's the star, man. There's like, I don't know how much more else I could say it. Like, she's a star, and I really love this match. Both of these women threw down and definitely kept the momentum from the previous match because they did great.
Yeah, and I felt like Jody Threat, like it was the kind of that Captain America, I can do this all day vibe. She, as much damage as she took, she kept getting up, she kept trying, she kept in there. And I agree, she has looked, especially I think since she's joined up and formed Spitfire with Denny Luna, like the two of them have grown so much, and I feel like we see that growth a lot when people really find their community in professional wrestling. And I think it's that support system that helps foster that growth. And this was so much fun to see where both of these two competitors have come from and where they're at now. And they put on probably, I think, one of the hardest hitting matches of the night. And Jody Threat gave it her all. I mean, even the finish off of this was her trying to rush in and take Marina down and try to get something off, and she just got caught in the mother's milk and had to tap out. But kudos, this was one of those looked good in a loss kind of situations. And I love the continuation of having Moxley out there, like her coach coming out with her for a fight. And he was as pumped for her winning as he would have been for himself, if not more. And I love that we're seeing that faction still together outside of AEW. So kudos to both of these competitors. They did an awesome night, and it was so much fun to watch them fight each other. And speaking of two other women that were a lot of fun to watch fight each other, we had the Bloodsport debut of Li Ying Lee from TNA, formerly NXT, taking on not only the TNA Knockouts World Champion, but also the JCW World Champion in Masha Slamovich. And we got a few JCW announcements going on, one of which was that Masha decided that because she wants to be a defending champion, and I feel like she wants to keep up building up her reign as a champion in both of these promotions. Masha put the the TNA Knockouts World Title on the line against Lee in this match, in a Bloodsport rules match, which was a surprise to everybody. And this is the first TNA title defended in a Bloodsport match, probably in GCW. I loved that little bit of flavor that was added to this was so much fun, and it gave it a little more zing to it. Uh, Mikey, I know you've been following Lee since she was in NXT as Xia Li. We know she's got quite a bit of a martial arts background. Masha's a scrapper. I feel like this was kind of similar, same but different as the last match. We obviously, I think, all of us, including the Halfling Wizard, Masha is one of our favorites. She's just so entertaining and so fun and just brings a unique energy into the ring. She's killing it. This has been like the last half of this year has been a year for her. What were your thoughts on this match? What did you think of Lee's debut in Bloodsport? And how did you feel with this being a TNA Knockouts World Title match?
I absolutely love that this turned into a championship match for the TNA Knockouts Championship. Like, Masha's like, I see what Jordan did. Let me hold my beer. Like, that's exactly what this felt like. So first and foremost, I want to give flowers to Lian Li and follow my conspiracy theory here. This match was so awesome that I find it in no coincidence that TNA today announced that they signed her full time.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, that I'm going to stick with that story. I'm like, this match with TNA were just like, they're like, she's pretty good. Saw this match. All right, get this girl signed to our retainer right now. Masha also continues to be amazing. And I honestly think that you're absolutely right. The second half of this year for Masha, both in GCW and TNA, have been so amazing. She has such a bright future ahead of her for only being 26, I believe we said it was.
Yeah,
so
26.
she hasn't even hit the peak yet. And like, she's already doing amazing work. This match ruled because, again, it was like brawling style versus martial arts training. Not to mention that Lian Li also has weapons training too, which was really cool to see in her entrance as she came out. I love this match so much. I'm like, I want to see what we get with TNA with Masha is really great. I want to see more of this Masha too, the scrappier version, which I'm pretty sure we will, given in her neck, whatever lays for her. But this match ruled. Both of them did awesome. Like, I couldn't stop smiling this whole entire match because it was so good. They both did great. There's a lot of hard hits, a lot of, throwing to the mat. They weren't afraid to throw each other, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And, as an added cherry on the top that, this happened to be a Bloodsport rules match for the TNA Knockouts Championship. So I got everything I wanted. I want to see a rematch between these two down the line now. That's, I think, the other big takeaway is I need, whether it's in Bloodsport or in a TNA ring, I need these two to duke it out again.
Yeah, I think this was it was one of those signs of like showing that Lee has the chops to be a contender for that title. So I don't think she's too far away from being back in that title contention, especially in a TNA ring. Masha definitely is. I mean, Masha and Jordan quickly became two of my favorite wrestlers overall, and being a GCW stan, as it were. Masha is definitely one of my favorites. She holds it down as one of their main champions, and every one of her matches has been so much fun. But she does retain her title, and picks up the victory over Lee with a series of strikes to pick up a TKO victory. Looked awesome doing it. Credit to both of them. Super fun match. And speaking of Masha's titles, we also got the announcement for the dates for the the J Cup series, which will be a 2-night event, February 15th and 16th. We got some clips of the last one, which saw Masha actually pick up the victory to win that title. So she's just a few months shy of having a year mark of holding that title. So I imagine we'll see her make an appearance there to try and continue that streak. But it should be a pretty awesome night, or a couple of nights that we get to see the Jersey Cup go on, and I'm prepared to see some really exciting young wrestlers that we've already seen through GCW, like Alec Price, and folks like that, and possibly some new ones. I think it's going to be
Right.
a really fun series of
As well as some
matches.
local, as well as I think, and seeing the
Yeah.
clips from last year's Jersey Cup, they do a really good job of also getting, wrestlers who are in the Jersey scene. Like I'm just spitballing here, and of course I'm selfish because I want to see him because I think he's great because I love him. I would love to see Santana Jackson return in this
Yeah.
thing. Like just a lot. There's a lot of talent in the Jersey wrestling scene, and I would love to see them all. But you're absolutely right. Even from the people we know, like Masha's gonna be there. I want to see Alec Price back in this thing. Like
Jordan Oliver, maybe.
I want to see Mr. Danger in this thing.
Yep.
Like,
Well, and when we were watching the recaps of it, we saw quite a few familiar faces that have gone on from GCW to go up to other promotions.
we saw Jonathan Gresham.
Yeah, we saw Nick Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen the places that GCW and JCW stars go, and we've already seen the potential that some of these stars have in GCW right now. So I don't think it's long before we see them making some appearances in some bigger stages around the world, which we know we're already going to see with GCW in the future. But look forward to seeing the Jersey Cup in February. I think it's going to be a pretty awesome couple of nights. But we move on to that with our final 3 matches of the night. The next one was WWE NXT's Miles Bourne, stablemate of Charlie Dempsey, making his Bloodsport debut against Royce Isaacs, who is very familiar face for a lot of people in GCW, in Bloodsport, and just around the world. I had a feeling this was going to be a pretty rough match, and I mean that in a very physical way. I was impressed with Miles Bourne because this is a new place for him, and he's pretty new to just professional wrestling in general. And Royce Isaacs looks like he'd beat up a telephone pole. So I thought this was going to be a pretty steep hill to climb, but all in all, I thought Miles Bourne did really well for making his debut. Mikey, this is another one of your NXT wrestlers. How did you think? What were your expectations for Miles Bourne coming into Bloodsport, and what did you think after it was all said and done?
So I think Miles has had a really fun year. I'm not gonna lie. He's been on NXT television here and there, but of course, all of No Quarter Catch crew has gotten lots of has gone to go be able to have some incredible experiences here. I mean, we saw Charlie and Miles, and then their other stablemates, Havion, at Slammiversary, going up against Zachary Wentz and Wes Lee and Trey Miguel, and probably one of my top favorite 3 matches of Slammiversary, which was incredible to watch. I knew that this was more of like a coming out party, so to speak, of Bloodsport for Miles Bourne. So while I picked him to pick up the victory, I am not surprised he lost, but it wasn't an easy victory for Royce Isaac to win over Miles, because you can tell that Miles has a solid foundation in grappling and just like standards of like mat to mat wrestling, if you will. But I knew Miles was going to have a challenge because I forgot how big Royce Isaacs is. That man is thicker than a Snicker, if you will. And I'm just like, but his personality, he's the Sky High Samurai, and his personality is freaking hilarious. And then when the bell rings, he turns into an actual beast.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think this was a strong showing for Miles Bourne. But yeah, Royce Isaacs definitely earned the victory here. Miles didn't make it easy for him. And I want to see more of Miles. I also want to see Tavion. I hope in next Bloodsport we get Tavion to come over here, because I think Tavion would do great here as well. But yeah, this was a fun and entertaining match. I feel like this was like a nice little breather for what was to come after this for the next 2 matches, specifically the next match, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I thought this was great. Miles did great, and Royce Isaacs continues to show why he's a dominant force in Bloodsport.
And I think that was a good point that you made too, because initially I was surprised that Slamovich versus Lee was before this match. I thought that would be later on, just with Masha's kind of standing. But I think this was a good break. And not to say that this was a lesser match, but it was kind of a refresher before we went into two crazy matches. But yeah, I am also a fan of Miles Bourne. From what I've seen of him, he's been very entertaining, and I agree. I'd like to see more of the No Quarter Catch crew in Bloodsport. I think they all have the right kind of pedigree for it, and they all bring slightly different kind of characters to that. And Royce Isaacs was just super entertaining, and he just absolutely outworked Miles Bourne and picked up the victory by almost choking Bourne unconscious with a rear naked choke. So credit to him, and I think there's a high chance that we'll see both of these guys back in Bloodsport next time. And that brings us to our final two matches. So we had our co-main event of the night. Was a TNA rematch in a Bloodsport ring between Josh Alexander and Mike Bailey. And I mean, I think we all had high expectations for this match, especially kind of where the two of them are right now in their career versus where they were when they fought the first time. The setting is very different from their first match. You talk about one was an hour-long match. The other one, this match had a 15-minute time limit on it.
It's just as great.
Yeah, and we had the classic grappler versus striker. And I think we got to see really them play with all of their strengths. Mikey, I know this. I feel like this was probably one of the matches you were looking forward to the most when all the matches were announced.
Yeah.
You bring up their first match quite a bit as one of your favorites, especially for these two competitors. How did you feel about this second meetup between the two of them in Bloodsport? And what do you feel like the Bloodsport setting kind of brought differently for them?
So I think what I really loved about this is that Bloodsport offers the venue, especially for the stars that we are quite used to in their respective companies, be able to play a little more loosely, if you will, with how things go. We know that Josh is literally a walking weapon. He is the epitome of Canadian wrestling school and like the Canadian style of wrestling, because that is what he's trained in. And that is what, he has years of experience in. Meanwhile, across from him, we have probably one of my favorite martial artists turned wrestlers, which is Speedball Mike Bailey, who I think is a prime example of how you combine professional wrestling and your martial arts background seamlessly. And I think I really enjoyed this match. And yes, I bring up their match from 2 years ago, that hour-long match, always because that is that is the director's cut of what we saw in Bloodsport, I feel like, because this is exactly what I knew we were going to get. Josh Alexander is your traditional grappler, but he's also going to throw you halfway across the ring, which we saw quite a bit. But Speedball Mike Bailey is going to check you with his kicks. And at one point, we saw Josh have to kind of make sure that nothing happened because he was kind of like brushing his arm a little bit after he got nicked by a kick, which we know. And then we saw footprints on his thigh towards the end of this match, knowing that Speedball Mike Bailey, it's like, those kicks aren't being held. Like, Mike is kicking for reals. This was great. They were having a great time. Of course, I am super happy that we got this match. Again, when this was announced, I lost my proverbial mind, so to speak. And I actually think this lived up to my expectations. I knew these two were going to bring it. They did. I absolutely love this. And, I'm enjoying Josh Alexander outside of TNA for as much as we can, because as he announced, he's not taking any more independent dates come January, which means he's going to be with TNA or wherever he ends up with when his contract expires. So But I thought this was great. I'm excited to see where both of these men go. As we all know, too, Speedball's contract with TNA is done. He's considered a free agent. If these two want to go one more time before the January, I would not be upset about it. But yeah, this was fantastic. And this lived up to my expectations. And yeah, this was in my top 3 for this event as well.
Yeah, I thought this felt probably like the most one of, like, if you wanted to show someone Bloodsport, especially someone who's a wrestling fan or like a traditional professional wrestling fan, showing them this, especially if they have any idea who Josh Alexander or Mike Bailey are, this is a really good example of like that translation to Bloodsport. I thought it was great seeing the frustration from both of them when they were outside of their strengths, and how they kind of found their ways back into it, especially the fact that Josh Alexander just got more violent the longer it went on because he was getting more and more frustrated. So he just knew he had to put down Mike Bailey. And Mike Bailey trying to keep up with that pressure. Ultimately, Josh locks in an ankle lock, gets the tap out, and picks up the victory in a super impressive way. We saw a little bit of frustration from Mike Bailey afterwards, shoving the ref out of the way, but then giving the handshake and raising Josh's hand. So kudos to both of them. I know their time in TNA may be limited. Bailey's for sure, but we're not sure about Josh. But what little time we get of them there, awesome. And I wish great things for both of them because they're definitely two people that I'm happy I got to know from TNA and also Mike Bailey, who's made regular appearances in GCW. Selfishly, I hope that wherever Mike Bailey goes, they go to a company where they get to make independent appearances, especially in GCW, because I love getting to see him over here in GCW. But if this is the last time we get to see them wrestle, it was a great way to see them kind of go out. But that brings us to our final match of the night, the main event, and headlined by the man who headlines the event itself in Josh Barnett, the War Master, the babyface assassin, taking on MVP, the legend, the man, the myth, the legend, who, of WWE fame is now in the business of hurting people in AEW with the Hurt Syndicate, who we've seen been training up since last Bloodsport, where he made an appearance after the main event there with Josh Barnett, issuing a challenge to face Barnett. He's been training with Bobby Lashley. He's been getting his belts in jiu-jitsu and judo. And he's really been making those advancements and really been carrying this story over in everything that he's been doing in professional wrestling, and building this matchup, which I got to say, for two guys who are not youths anymore, they definitely, I think, got also all excited to see them go after each other. I was surprised how much of the audience was behind MVP in this. I mean, they really were there for him, wanted to see him win, were cheering him on the whole time, even after the match. What were your thoughts kind of heading into this main event with MVP, who's someone that I think, we've both seen him for years and years and years. I mean, it feels like he's been around for so long in professional wrestling to make, not only he's making a return. I think this is his first professional wrestling match in 2 years. So he's making a return to the ring. He's obviously had some long time issues that he's like recovered from. He's done a lot of training. He's kind of having this revitalization of his career. As this kind of, tough vet that's coming in to try and, see what he's still got left. And he's going up against Josh Barnett, who's this vet that is just kind of, he gets locked away for a few months at a time and then comes out to make these appearances and just beat the crap out of somebody. Kind of what were your expectations of this? I know you've gotten to see MVP quite a bit in the more recent appearances in AEW. And how do you feel like he did? Did he live up to the hype? Did it feel like this was a legit challenge for both of these folks? What'd you feel about this match, Mikey?
So while this match didn't necessarily have like a high impact, oh my gosh moments,
Mm-hmm.
I actually really loved, and I think this was a very smart match to close out Bloodsport for a couple different reasons. Number one, as you have mentioned before, both of them are in little bit of the older side, though not that old.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, I really enjoyed this match because it felt like two people who took two different paths but have gained lots of experience in the paths that they took, and they were basically two vets of their respective industries going at it. I mean, Josh Barnett, I'm not the combat sports person here on BC Wrestle Pod, but of the little research I did, Josh Barnett had an incredible career. MVP had an incredible wrestling career, not just where he's currently at in AEW, all the stuff he got to do in WWE, but also people forget that he was the inaugural Intercontinental Champion for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So he also has that New Japan wrestling style background too, which a lot of people forget. And I think I enjoyed this match too, because it also felt like it was just two friends having a sparring session just with the crowd watching them. Like, they look like they had a lot of fun. And maybe this is just me, and I'm not apologizing for sounding weird when I say this, but I felt their youth during this match come out for them as they were grappling each other and they were having this match and just trying to take each other out. It's like their youthful energy and their playfulness
Mm-hmm.
came out. And this was any of the crazy hard hitting like the previous other matches we had did. I think this was like a really true, if you quote unquote, gentleman's type of match. And this is this is when I think of combat sports, this is what I see in my mind's eye, so to speak. And you know what? I'm just going to say it here. Unless somebody else corrects me, Josh Barnett is just such a good dude. Like, he seems like he cares about professional wrestling. He cares about mixed martial arts. Also, to come to find out, he's a bit of a nerd. That's extra bonus points in my book, too. I was like, yeah, he's one of us. We won't claim him. I really enjoyed this match. I really love this as the final match on Bloodsport. MVP is also great too. I love this for a variety of reasons, is basically what I surmise here.
Yeah, this match, I think that to your point, Mikey, this match had a lot of grappling. I mean, obviously that was the area that MVP trained a lot in. Josh Barnett is a huge catch wrestler. That's a big part of his background. Obviously, from MMA, he does have a striking pedigree, but he's always been a grappler first. And so I think what we got to see was both of them try to go to those strengths, but also it did feel like it was MVP testing those skills and Josh Barnett also testing MVP's skills in those regards. And they talked about it too, that Josh Barnett was the person that kind of got MVP started down this road. And I feel like that's also what we're seeing with Bloodsport, is we see a lot of these folks that Josh Barnett really wants to feature in Bloodsport. And I think we've gotten really lucky that we get to see that, because for whatever reason, even the companies that don't often play well with others are letting their talent come over here when it's a blood sport event. And so I'm really happy for us getting to see that. And I'm really happy for those competitors that get to come out here, especially if they get to compete against people they normally wouldn't at their home company. I give mad credit to MVP to get back in there and do this again, I guess, especially against someone like Josh Barnett. And, even though Josh Barnett did end up picking up the victory, he actually put MVP to sleep, picked up the technical submission. And, at the end, though, they got up, they shook each other's hands. And we got a big announcement from Josh Barnett after he gave a very passionate promo talking about, what Bloodsport is, what it means, the support for GCW as a whole. And I think, you and I have come to really understand the fan base that follows GCW, what that means, and also how hard all of the talent that's involved, whether it's in Bloodsport or any of the other GCW events, um, how much work they actually put into it and what this means to be GCW, and what it means to basically be the top independent kind of promotion out there that's just doing things that the other big promotions do, but doing it in their way. And we got to hear that from Josh Barnett. And then we got a big announcement from Josh Barnett that Josh Barnett will be following suit with what we got from Dream On, which is announcing another big match for the People versus GCW. And Josh Barnett issued an open challenge to anybody who is willing to step in there and face him at that event in January. And this was an exciting announcement. I think they're going to really pull out all the stops. This feels more and more like this is going to be GCW's, mania, as it would be.
This is going to go down as one of their big fours, so to speak.
Yeah.
Not to
And
mention, it's a blood sport match too.
yeah. So I think this is just it's showing how much they're putting into this event. This event is going to highlight everything that is GCW, what we've had built up to this point, and what we're going to get going forward. So having Josh Barnett have a blood sport match at this event in an open challenge, mine's going wild with anybody who would be stepping up to face him.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give my thoughts in a little bit, but to kind of speak on to what you're saying about the whole entire thing too. GCW since we began covering it here, and I have to make a correction because on the stream I said that Homecoming was during May. Homecoming was in August, so I've been watching since August, which is still a pretty long time. But GCW has done a good job of showcasing all kinds of talent.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've watched it, I am so happy that I no longer think that GCW is where it's nothing but death matches. We still get death matches, as we saw the Nick Gage Invitational 9, but GCW does such a good job of also supporting really good young talent and also bringing in some really fun people. We've seen lots of crossover with wrestling in general, like Fight Club. We had Leon Slater come through. Gringo Loco is a staple in a lot of these GCW shows, and he's part of the main roster, if you will. I've come to love people like Joey Janela and Megan Bain. Masha being a champion in here with the JCW championship is amazing, and she's always a good time. Alec Price is great, but yeah, the People versus GCW is building up and is showcasing all the different things GCW has. We're getting a Bloodsport match with Josh Barnett. Our Ultraviolet Championship is going to be up for grabs in a ladder match, which, spoiler alert, we got 4 out of the 6 participants in it. We have a championship match where the tag titles with Violence is Forever taking on the Garbage Daddies, which also is an interesting thing because Cole Radrick still has that brass ring he has yet to catch in. We might be getting a triple threat between Ali Catch and Effie and Mance Warner for that GCW championship. GCW has become such a really breath of fresh air in my rotation of what I normally watch. And I'm just like, it's fun to be a wrestling fan. It really is. And I'm excited for this. I see personally, I don't care who comes out facing Josh Barnett. I think it's going to be great. But on the stream, I called Josh Barnett the murder dad of the group. I was just like, let's have Murder Dad go up against Murder Grandpa. I want him and Minoru Suzuki. Or in a perfect world, in my dream, if hopefully AEW will let him. I don't know, but I hope so. I would love to see Josh Barnett versus Shibata. That is my ultimate dream right there. Let Shibata come through. I would love to see Shibata versus Josh Barnett. I think that would be a match made in heaven.
Or someone like Zack Sabre Jr. or something.
Yes. Oh my. Shoot. Let's just throw out everything. Honestly, Josh Barnett versus anyone, but at the top of my list would be Minoru Suzuki, Katsuyori Shibata, Let's see who else. Oh, you know what? Shingo Takagi from New Japan would be amazing. But honestly, also because I think it would be a weird match, but I think I would kind of dig it, would be like Josh Barnett versus Hiromu Takahashi. I think would be amazing too. But honestly, no, Zack Sabre Jr. Or even like, let's get some of the British wrestlers over here. Michael Oku, Cara Noir. I don't know if they would do it, but Simon Miller.
let's not forget that we get wrestlers from all the promotions. So who knows? We could get someone from
it could be anybody's guess.
AEW, TNA. I mean, there's a lot of options that we could see come out there. So, but that was our big announcement that we went off the air with for Josh Barnett Bloodsport. This was our second Bloodsport covering for GCW and for Bi-Conics. We've had quite a bit of GCW in the last week, but this is
covered a lot.
Yeah, this was a different beast, as it were, with Bloodsport. And what were your final thoughts on Bloodsport 12, and what's your final grade for the event as a whole?
So, since this is my second Bloodsport within the span of a couple months too, because Bloodsport 11 was in July, I enjoyed that one. I will definitely say I think this one was a lot stronger than 11. Not to say 11 was bad in any way, but Bloodsport 12 was definitely a lot stronger. I think there was a lot more consistency and a lot more like back and forth for a lot of these matches, even though our opening match was kind of the weakest part of it, but I thought it was still good. And then everything else was great. If I had to give this a grade, I think I'd give this like a solid 8.5 out of 10. So like a B+ for me. I think this was a really strong show for GCW and Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. It was just a lot of fun. And I think that's what, if you will, it's GCW offering another version of brutality, but it is the palate cleanser. And it's like on the complete opposite ends of brutality of the 2 weeks we've got, because we had the Invitational, which was deathmatch centric. This one was more combat centric. And you know what? In between all that, we got regular GCW shows. Like we just had the Dream On event the Saturday morning. Yeah, it was. I gave this a B+, 8.5 empanadas out of 10. I thought this was a strong show.
Awesome, I agree. This was phenomenal. This is one of those things too, where it's like watching this event makes you want to come back to watch the next one, and really that's what you want to go for.
Andrew, I can't thank you enough for being our GCW correspondent. I had such a great time. And even though this is the last GCW event that we're covering for 2024, I'm already looking forward to 2025, even though we're not even in December yet, because we got People versus GCW in January, and then we're covering the J Cup in February, and not to mention all the other crazy things that are going to go down in 2025, because and Andrew, you can probably agree or disagree with me, but I just have a feeling in the pit of my stomach and in the bottom of my soul that GCW is about to have a big 2025.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking hyperbole, because in the short amount of time that I have been watching GCW and I've become a fan of GCW, they have done such a great job to keep me invested for the shows that we do cover and just the ones that I watch on my own. I think 2025 is going to solidify GCW as a very strong force in the independent wrestling scene. I'm excited to see what they bring.
100% agree.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is going to be it for us here at the Grapple Gurus. Thank you so much for tuning into our Bloodsport 12 review. This is the last review for a couple of days. We are going to be going dark the rest of this week, or at least Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. All of us are going to take some time off, enjoy the Thanksgiving break with our families, but fear not, you do not have to wait for too long, because the next thing you will see myself, the professor, and a special friend of ours as we do a live watch along for WWE Survivor Series, now that we have our full entire card. So If you want to know what that is, stay tuned to the social medias to see all our picks for that. Also, WWE, don't mess my boy Shinsuke up because he's back. He's getting a match at the pay-per-view. I love Shinsuke, but don't disappoint me. But of course, Andrew and I will also be back together along with our co-host Will this upcoming Sunday because we have a TNA pay-per-view that we have to review. It never ends, but I am looking forward to what's happening this upcoming weekend and what December holds for us. But until then, from me and Andrew and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, enjoy your Thanksgiving, whether you are here or you are abroad, wherever you are watching. We here at BC WrestlePod wish you the best during this Thanksgiving season, spending time with your families, whether they be blood or found families. Here, we don't discriminate here. And for myself and Andrew and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will catch you this upcoming Saturday for the Watch Along of Survivor Series. But until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll catch you next time.